I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I'd like to start with our land of acknowledgement.
Thank you through you, Mayor Waters. The lands we know today as the Township of Centre Wellington have been home to Indigenous people since time immemorial. We acknowledge, excuse me, that we are on the treaty lands and traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe. With increasing encroachment by non-Indigenous settlers in the Township of Centre Wellington, the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee couldn't continue their traditional lifestyles and settled into their villages along the Credit River and the Credit River Valley or Grand River Valley. These Indigenous nations still uphold their treaty rights within our jurisdiction. Today, the Township of Centre Wellington remains home to Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We're grateful to have the opportunity to share and to respect Mother Earth, and we are committed to building constructive and cooperative relationships with Indigenous nations.
Thank you, Councillor Evoy. Addendums and corrections to the agenda. There are a couple here. We're going to be deferring consent agenda item 7.5 due to Wellington County deferral of that item. And we'd like to, I'd like to also move up 8.3 to 8.1, just given sort of a flow of the meeting, better flow of meeting for tonight. Now I'll move down to item 4, disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Yes, Councillor Wilton.
Yes, thank you. This is actually a catch-up conflict of interest declaration. I missed the meeting on May 12th. I was absent out of town. For that meeting, I would have had a conflict of interest with item 12.3, which was the decision report RZ0524 for 6235 Guelph Street for IPA Power. And if the item has been deferred from today, do I need to declare a conflict for today's? Should I still? Okay. So the one for this evening's meeting would have been report number 7.5, the bylaw amendment for 6235 Guelph Street for IPA Power, which has now been deferred, but I would have a conflict with that item as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wilton. Any other councillors with conflicts? I have a conflict tonight related to the following matter: 7.6, Riverfest Elora 2025 bylaw exemption. The reason is my involvement with Riverfest Elora over the past 15 years. So at that point in time, Deputy Mayor will step in my spot and lead that item. Okay, so now we'll move down to presentation and announcements. And we'll start with 5.1, County Councillor Report. Councillor, we'll welcome Councillor Mary Lloyd. Hello, Mary, and welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for having me to Council Chambers to report. I'm going to start off with Roads Department. And as you're aware, the work is progressing on County Road 18 with lights and roundabouts. Also, the Automated Speed Enforcement Statistics Report was submitted to the province. Speeds on Bellside Avenue have been significantly reduced, and now the statistics show that 85% of the traffic that is traveling through that area, which is almost reduced to 20%. So 85% were speeding before, and now it's down to about 20% that are speeding. So that's very significant. It's having a direct effect on the safety of every person who uses that busy road. The speed limit reduction from Tower to Scotland is now 40 kilometers. In the measuring of the east and westbound traffic, almost 1 million vehicles traveled through that speed camera location. It's a very, very busy road. Thank you to both the county and township road teams who are working to address the resident concerns on Garifraxa Street and County Road 19. It's the detour route while Highway 6 is under construction. It's good to have great working relationships, and I appreciate working with Councillor Evoy with regards to this to help satisfy the community's concerns and the residents being very nervous. And today when I drove by, I saw the portable speed monitor there monitoring the speeds of vehicles going through. So that's wonderful that that's happening. The OPP detachment Committee and the County Council have approved now and adopted the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, and it is forwarded to the Solicitor General's office as per the recommended way in which to do it. There will be presentations in the fall that will be happening in all the member municipalities. So you'll be seeing Christine Veet make an inquiry about being a delegation to your council to talk about that. Great work to Councillor Evoy and to Councillor McDonald for participating on Safe Communities. Joint Social Services and Land Ambulance Committee. This report was really significant. The Housing Services Need Report for Wellington Guelph was presented, and it actually even had a segment that was specifically for Centre Wellington that addressed how many units we are short in our housing situation, and it's kind of makes you quake in your boots. In Guelph, it's over 8,000, and here it's over 2,500. It's very significant, and it gives us all pause on what we should be trying to encourage building in our community to help with all levels of housing. There was also a report called Growing Great Generations that was done for the childcare section. We approved an expansion at Wellington Place Childcare in Aboyne. There'll be 1,500 square feet added, which actually works into about 15 toddler spaces. I didn't know toddlers took up so much room, but with all the prerequisites of what you have to have, they take up a lot of space. Land Ambulance. With the City of Guelph being our provider, it was agreed that there's going to be a committee formed through the staff of the county to work with the staff of the city to come up with the best way to move forward to build the spaces that will be required throughout Wellington County. The first one would be in Erin, and that is the one that they'll be addressing. Information Heritage and Seniors, there's been great progress happening at the children's space at the museum. There's also a wonderful exhibit there, which is the refugee exhibit, which is a very exciting exhibit. And for those that are unable to travel to Pier 21 in Halifax, it would give you a real idea of what it is like to come to Canada in pre-years to be here as a refugee and develop your new life in Canada. The Multicultural Festival is coming up quick. I hope you're able to all come out and join. And the Thursday night concerts are resuming at the Heritage Barn. Very busy spot, that museum this summer. The library summer reading clubs are well underway with almost being oversubscribed. They always make room for children to participate. It's important to encourage early reading. Economic Development Committee actually hosted its very first economic development tour. This one focused on the south end of Wellington County. We toured spots in Puslinch, Guelph-Armasa, and Erin, and we finished off our trip with a tour of Elora Mill and Jefferson Elora plant. Boy, is it ever loud inside of that Jefferson Elora plant. I have great appreciation for what it's like to see those heavy presses coming down and for those that are working on their feet for several hours a day. We also saw where they're expanding inside the facility to bring in some new, larger presses, and Elora Mill highlighted where they're getting excited as they would like to move forward on the Walser building rebuild. Solid waste. Well, the Elora transfer station is progressing. It's on track and it will be hopefully completed in early December and reopened. On July 1st, the transfer responsibility for recycling moves to producers. Households are not going to see any changes. So if your schedule is to put it out this coming Wednesday morning, continue to put it out. If you're next Wednesday morning, continue to put it out. Businesses, however, were given the grace by the county to subscribe to a rolling cart system, and those pickups start actually this Thursday for the very first time. It's a mechanical service that will be offered where no one will be touching the bins. They're going to hook up to the side of the truck and be dumped. And it's a mixed stream, although they still would like to see us wash all of our plastic containers when we put them in, but those bins have to be out to the curb at 6 a.m. for Thursday morning, this coming Thursday. So before I ask for questions, I just want to say one thing, and that is thank you. thank you for sponsoring the wonderful shuttle bus that takes place Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Yesterday, I was a tourist in my own town. I took the ride from the Fergus Marketplace. I toured the Center for the Arts when I got off. I walked Mill Street. I tried a real, REEL, treat from the new Gorge Cinema window that's offering ice cream treats. And then I viewed the 1988 special feature, The Great Adventure, watching two Canadian icons, John Candy and Dan Aykroyd. I've had a great, wonderful afternoon eating popcorn and laughing at old-time humor. And then I walked up Metcalfe Street and caught a ride home. I just want to say thank you. That's an opportunity that's available to each and every resident in Center Wellington. Please take up the offer that you have given those of you who are watching online, because it's a fantastic way to enjoy both Fergus downtown and Elora downtown and don't have to worry about parking. And that's my presentation, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Mary. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mary. I enjoy sitting on Safe Communities with you too. I just have one question. Nigel Belchamber made recommendations at Wellington County about doing your meetings online. And do you know when that's going to come? Has there been discussion? Yeah.
Thanks for that question, Councillor McDonald. Yes, actually, we had a report come to us in May. We were having a few I would say technical difficulties in getting the equipment that would be mounted inside the chamber office, and it is scheduled to start in our September meeting. So we are looking forward to having it.
Any other questions for Mary? Oh, Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Thank you, Councillor Lloyd. With regards to the recycling for the businesses in the downtown, I saw a lot of them got their new bins. Now, if somebody was missed out, like if there was a business that missed out, what can they do to get a bin? Or is there, like, can they go online, or is there somewhere that they can still register to get a bin?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Jefferson. It's very important for them to reach out to the solid waste department and follow up with them. If they have applied for a bin and it wasn't dropped off, that's the first thing that they need to confirm. The second thing they need to confirm is that as a business, they could apply for the free card that allows them to take their recycles to the transfer stations and drop them off free. And the third thing is they may be asked to contact Waste Management directly to get a bin. But they have done all those 14 downtown drop-offs. It was quite an exciting thing. I took pictures of them dropping off the bins at my building. I was really excited about it. But I do know that there's confusion in downtown cores where there will be residents down there that can't have a large green bin because there's no place to store it, but unfortunately their bins will not be picked up. Those blue bins put out on the main street will just be left there because those are no longer going to be picked up.
Councillor Yvonne.
Thank you. Actually, I have a follow-up to Councillor Jefferson's question, because that's a really good point. So has it been made clear what they're supposed to do with their waste? Before I get to my question, sorry.
Well, it was hoped that the owners of the building would have tried to subscribe to the recycling program to get bins for their buildings, but I'm unsure if those buildings did that. I didn't see a whole lot of bins that were dropped off randomly for the residents down there. So at this point, they're going to put out bins that are not going to be picked up and then call to get direction, only to find out that they'll have to take their bins to the transfer station.
Thank you for that. I'm hoping we can come up with an interim plan, because that will be problematic with garbage out in the middle of summer for people who don't have anywhere to put it. So I'd like to think that between us, we'll be able to work with our team and township or county to make sure that there is a plan in place, because to leave them without anywhere to put their garbage.
Well, their garbage is...
No, I mean the garbage that will be left out the first week or two.
The garbage will be picked up on the regular schedule. The organics will be picked up on the regular and that's usually the stinky stuff. That'll be picked up on the regular schedule, but the recycling no longer will be picked up if they're in residential blue bins, because that's not a service going down the streets anymore. And we did have some businesses that are not located in downtown that were looking for that pickup, but the agreed upon routes have been set in stone to be paid for. And those were those maps that we published to say that's where we're going. So unfortunately, some businesses that are just outside of that pickup area are going to be disappointed, but they had to draw the line somewhere.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. My original question, with your permission, was about, you made a comment about it's all being a single stream for recycling. It's a little disheartening for all the work that we're doing. So can you just expand on that a little bit? What happens when it goes from there to the next stop?
So the mechanical bins, or the bins that are picked up in the cart system, those trucks will be going into a recycling plant and it'll be de-streamed from there. So they will be sorting it all out and putting it where it should be. The other trucks that are still on the road in the residential area will still be sorting into cardboard, paper, glass, plastic. So that will still be happening. But as we all transition into carts, which that is the future of all of our services, then it'll be de-streamed because it will go into a plant that would be separating.
Any other comments or questions for Mary? Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mary, for your presentation.
Be Canada Day.
Happy Canada Day. Okay, now we'll move down to item 5.2, Councillors Committee updates. Who would like to, Councillor Welton, start?
Sorry, and sorry for the coughing this evening. I will do my best. All right, so yeah, just a very short update for the Fergus BIA. Their meeting is actually this Wednesday, so not too much new to report since the last meeting we had. But everything's going really well with Fergus BIA. They've got lots of volunteers organizing all the different events and activities for the summer, and fall and into the winter even, which is awesome. So they're cooking along over there. A couple highlights is that the Medieval Fair is July 26th. So if you want a really unique experience, mark that in your calendars. And another good highlight is Twilight at Templin, the music series that's live in Templin Gardens. It starts this Wednesday with the Sean Connery. So that'll be a good show for the first kickoff night. And I believe the BIA has also purchased bike racks, and they're looking forward to working with staff to get those installed in downtown Fergus, which will be really good. So yeah, so anyway, I think that's it for Fergus. But for anyone watching online, if you are a Fergus BIA member, the meeting's Wednesday at 8 a.m. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Welton. Councillor Evoy.
Thank you, through you, Farm Safety. Although I was unable to attend as I was out of province, I've heard that Farm Safety attended and helped out at Breakfast on the Farm, which was, of course, at Harrop Farms, and was a huge success. Seeing Farm Safety once again working closely with Fall Fair and lots of the ag groups and farmers out there. So great kudos to the team at Walter Gross, Sharon Gross, and all the members on that committee. It was a great success.
Thank you, Councillor Evoy. Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. I will echo what Councillor Evoy is saying about breakfast at the farm. I actually had breakfast with Mayor Waters. It was an excellent breakfast, I have to say. The tractor ride to get to the events was awesome. I really want to take note of all the activities they had for kids. It was really nice to see. They had the most beautiful Clydesdale horse that you could pet. And our Center Wellington Fire Department was there. Weather permitting, it turned out very well. My next committee I will talk about is seniors. And right now, the Seniors Committee is working through their constitution. They are active and busy. Programs are running in the summer, usually not as busy in the summer, but they're still running all summer. Safe Communities, July 5th, Safe Communities is attending the parade in Erin. July 7th is National Prevention Day. August 21st is Drug Poisoning Awareness Day. and Stop the Stigma rally in Mount Forest on August 21st. As Councillor Lloyd stated, I was informed that Safe Communities will be coming around to our municipality in the fall. Another thing to note is someone that sits on road committee at county mentioned that the speed cameras, they're going to be doing some lines on the road and bigger signs. So there'll be a little bit more awareness when you're coming into the zone. I think will be helpful. And I'm just going to give a shout out to county while I have this mic on. We need daycare so bad, so I will take the 15 spots. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Any other folks to speak to the committees? Okay. Thank you for that, those updates. I'm going to go down to item 5.3 and invite Matthew Beddick from KPMG regarding audited financial statements to come up and provide a presentation. I see you, Matthew, right there.
I'm online. How are you today?
Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
The presentation is up. Okay, so thank you for inviting me here tonight. Over the next few minutes, I'll walk through some of the aspects and findings from the audit of the financial statements of the township, and then talk about where we go next. So if I could advance down, I think 3 slides. Probably 2 more. Yeah, 1 more, that one. So in terms of the status, we are effectively complete our audit. We prepared this report about 10 days ago, and at that time, we still had a handful of things outstanding. We are, pretty much up to date with those. We have to complete this process, trade some correspondence with management, and then we'll be in a position to issue our audit opinion. In the staff report, there are the draft financial statements for the year, and in that there is the draft auditor's report. It is a clean audit opinion, so there's no qualifications or modifications, which is what you should expect. And as I go through my presentation, I will mention a few things that I would like sort of council to take away from this. And the first being the clean audit opinion. That is one important thing to note. So if we go down to the next slide. So the purpose of this slide is the auditors are required under the standards to communicate certain things to council. And one of the things we're required to communicate is how we respond to presumed risk in the audit that there's intentional manipulation of the accounts due to the override of internal controls. And what we mean by this is no matter how good any internal control structure is, there still can be incentives, opportunities, and rationalizations for staff to effectively make fictitious entries into the accounts such that the financial statements look a way that they shouldn't. And that's what we refer to as the risk of fraud in the audit. This is not unique to the Township of Centre Wellington. It's required for every single audit performed in Canada. And in response to that, we are required to look at a few things. The most important is what we refer to as high-risk entries. And so in that, we do take the entire population of transactions that the township got into throughout the year, the thousands and thousands and thousands they are, identify what we refer to as high-risk criteria, put those transactions through a filter to pull out those high-risk transactions. And where we find those, we do a deep dive and make sure there's nothing untoward going on. Happy to say no findings whatsoever from this process. Next slide, please. Here we're talking about obligatory reserve fund revenue and deferred revenue, and I appreciate that's a mouthful. What we're mostly talking about here are development charges. And I want to remind council that how you account for development charges in your audited financial statements differs somewhat or significantly from how you do it from a budget perspective and from a cash perspective. And what I mean by this is the revenue from DCs is not recognized in the statements when the DCs are collected or collectible. They're recognized when the money is actually spent on the qualifying expenditures. So to that effect, we have looked at the collections that have come through the year. We tested a sample of those. And then we looked at how the money was spent. And we wanted to ensure that this money was spent in accordance with growth-related expenditures, as well as those contemplated in the DC study bylaw. Again, happy to say no findings. On the next slide, we talk about post-employment benefits. So these are health, dental, and life insurance benefits that are provided to some employees if they early retire and meet certain criteria. This is the area of focus for us because this is an estimate, and there are some complex assumptions that are built into that estimate. And to that end, the township does use a third-party actuary called Nexus Actuarial Consultants to assist them with this calculation. We have communicated with those specialists. We've ensured that the way that they made their calculations was appropriate. We've tested the assumptions and made sure they're reasonable, and made sure that the amounts recorded in the statements are properly reflected. Again, no findings. On the next slide, we talk about tangible capital assets. And so this is obviously a significant thing for us because it is the largest single item on the township's financial statements. And to that effect, we look at the capitalization policies. We did a sample of additions, looking to contracts and invoices for capital acquired during the year. We tested the depreciation expense, and then we also looked at repairs and maintenance types expenses that weren't capitalized to make sure that those were recorded properly. Again, no findings. We move on to the next slide here. On the next slide, it's a lot of bars and words to basically say during the course of our work, we did not find anything that required correction to the financial statements that you have there in draft, nor do we have any amounts that remain uncorrected. Again, this is a very good thing. And what this really means is that the information that we were provided for to do our audit did not need to be adjusted, and it speaks to the cleanliness of the accounts and the records that were prepared for the financial statements. On the next slide, we identify that we are required to report any significant deficiencies in internal control. And at the very bottom of the slide, we confirm that we did not find any significant deficiencies. And so, as I said before, I want to look at sort of a few things that council can take away. So, A, we've got a clean audit opinion. B, there were no corrections or required corrections to the statements as a result of the audit, and there are no control deficiencies or significant control deficiencies that we identified. That's sort of like a three-part triangle that basically gives sort of a green check mark to the overall financial reporting process of the municipality. If I move on to the next few slides, I'll move through these very quickly, I promise. Here we're just disclosing that we did have a new accounting standard in a couple of areas this year. These did not have a significant effect. Staff is probably quite happy. There have been a number of major accounting policy changes in the past number of years. This was a quiet year, and we were happy for that as well. On the next slide, we look at sort of the form, content, and presentation of the financial statements. And these are all what we would expect for the size and scope of the municipality. And on the next slide, I realize there are a lot of words on this slide, but these are required communications from the auditor to council, various things that may be contentious or would need to be reported, and we can see down the finding column, no matters to report on anything. This is all very good. On the last slide, before I stop talking, is the next slide for independence. So just reminding council that we are required to be independent of the township in order to perform our role as auditors. We've maintained that independence and no issues or concerns there. And I just want to close my formal remarks by thanking Adam, Mark, and the rest of their team for the assistance that they provided us and my team. During the audit, they were very hospitable, answered all our questions and provided all the information requests that we had, and were very good to deal with. We got full cooperation, so I want to thank them for that. So with that, I'll end the formal comments, pass it back to the chair for any questions.
Thank you, Matthew. Council comments, questions. Councillor Evoy.
Thank you through you, sir. I won't address what the difference is between none and nothing significant, and we'll accept it as there's nothing for us to concern ourselves with if it's not of any significance. And also want to take a moment to thank Adam and the team. This is great news, and I know we all appreciate how hard you guys work on it. So thank you all so much.
Any other comments or questions for Matthew? You did a good job, Matthew. You're getting off tonight. You're going to go.
I'm going to stick around until the report from Mark is done in case there are any questions, but I'll be quiet in the background.
Okay. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we're going to go to down to delegations and we're going to invite Marty Van Fleet to talk on behalf of the Stephanie Manarvich Green Space Fund regarding the Elora Green Space Sculpture Edition. Welcome, Marty.
Thank you, Mayor Waters and Council. So I am Marty Van Vliet, and together with my friend Risa Lent, we manage the Stephanie Manarvich Green Space Fund. What is that? Stephanie grew up on Mill Street, right across from what was then, in the 1970s, a gas station. And it was pretty dreadful and horrible. She moved away, traveled around the world, then came back and moved into the building again around 2007. And she watched that space transform from a gas station into this fabulous green space that's used by the community at large, sometimes for events and certainly for cultural projects. And it touched her heart. It really did mean a huge amount to her. And so when she passed away, she left $25,000 to be used to help better the green space as however we saw fit. To date, we've done a couple of projects. We did a pond, and then just recently, money was spent refurbishing the Tall Man. I'm glad to see he's back. And a little cheers to the work staff who have reinstalled him, and they did a great job and did a lot of work for that. So that was super. So fundamentally, now is Mo the Moose as a, I didn't pick the name, but he's very sweet. You guys might have seen him before. He did stand in the green space at one time. He's a moose calf, and he's made all out of found objects. Wrenches, gears. When you look at them from far, you can't tell that. When you get up close, it's really quite a fantastic sculpture. So the Elora Sculpture Project has offered up a position for him and are donating one of their bases so he can sit there. And I think Stephanie would really appreciate Mo the Moose as an addition to the town. I think he really will be a fabulous thing and something that everybody will love all the time. I think he'll become one of those iconic things that are photographed like the Tall Man. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Marty. Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. Thank you, Marty, for looking after the affairs of this and taking the time to do that. I saw a drawing of Mo the Moose, and I think he's adorable, and I think he's a size that children can also relate to. So I'm looking forward to it. And yes, the Tall Man is very welcomed back. And also, thank you for doing that. That's not an easy feat. And I look forward to seeing it all. Thank you. And thanks for coming today.
Any other comments or questions for Marty? Well, thanks again for your participation and looking after the green space along with staff. We really appreciate the input of the community that way. It's been a great space for a lot of folks in the community and also for a lot of visitors that come. I think really appreciate that space. Thanks.
And transformational for the town.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we're going to go down to item 6.2, Julian van Westerholt from MHBC Planning regarding 8.4 Water and Wastewater Servicing Master Plan Notice of Study Completion. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Waters and members of council. My name is Julianne Von Westrold. I'm an associate at MHBC Planning in Kitchener, and I'm here this evening on behalf of our clients, Elora Greens, Inc., to speak to you regarding item 8.4, the Water and Wastewater Servicing Master Plan. Our clients have purchased a property at 127 First Line in the newly added lands within the settlement boundary expansion area, and this was a significant investment for our clients who intend to develop these lands for a residential subdivision. You can refer to, I believe there's a handout that I provided, and there's a map just to give you some context in terms of where that property is. We have reviewed the water and wastewater servicing master plan and have met with Mr. Maiden to discuss our comments and concerns, and we appreciate that he took the time to meet with us. During our discussion with Mr. Maiden, we were advised that multiple water servicing projects identified in the master plan do not require a trigger prior to permitting development to proceed, and that means that no specific infrastructure is necessarily required for development to be permitted. In addition, Mr. Maiden assured us that alternative strategies may be considered once specific development applications were received and reviewed through the development approval process. Our clients want to rely on some of the assurances that that have been given to us just verbally because they are proposing to proceed with applications to the township shortly. So in summary, we would like to have these assurances confirmed from council and the township staff that consideration be given to our requests noted above, and that flexibility and need for creative solutions to servicing challenges in the area are required in order to realize council's commitment to growth through the recently approved settlement boundary expansions. Further decisions regarding water and wastewater servicing infrastructure works should not frustrate the township's growth objectives. Specifically, we ask for confirmation that the timing of the infrastructure improvements is development driven. Confirmation that the township will consider alternatives to water servicing should they be necessary, and would do so once an application is submitted and before them for review. We'd also like confirmation that water supply upgrades, for example, the water storage and water main to interconnect Elora and Fergus water distribution systems, are not required to permit the development of the ER1 lands in Elora, which include our clients' lands. In other words, these works will not impede a property owner within the ER1 area from making a development application and having it considered by the municipality for approval. And that the township consider and accept alternative wastewater servicing strategies or modified servicing strategies to permit the development of 127 First Line in advance of any employment land development. We appreciate the opportunity to provide our comments to you this evening, and we look forward to working with the township on completing the master plan. And this concludes my presentation. I'm here if you have any other questions of me. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. Questions from council? Yes. Nope. Thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome, Mayor.
Okay, we're going to now move down to consent items. Consent agenda items are considered routine in nature and voted on collectively. However, any member of council may request one of or more items be removed from the consent agenda for a separate discussion and or action. And I'll read the numbers are not quite right, so I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Central Wellington approves consent agenda items, and it's 7.1 through to 7.5 for this. No, 5.
No, 5. 4.
But
5 is the Riverfest.
No, it's Riverfest.
Well, we deferred that one.
Correct.
So it's 4. And then 7.6 will be voted on separately.
Okay, so then it's 7.4.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll read that again so we're just clear on that. The Council of Township of Central Wellington approved consent agenda items 7.4 through 7.1 through 7.4. Okay. Any comments, questions as it relates to those consent agenda items? Okay. Do we have a mover for that group? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor Evoy. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. So I'm going to leave and we're going to deal with the last consent.
Okay, we're looking at 7.6. Would you like me to read it? Are you ready to make a motion? Okay. First motion, Councillor Wilton. Second. No, I just asked. I said, do you need me to read it? It was no. Okay. Any discussion? No? All those in favor? And that's carried.
So now we're at considerations of reports, and we're going to move item 8.3 up. And I see Mark there, so we'll get Mark to speak to this 2024 audited financial statements.
All right,
welcome, Mark.
Thank you. So I will give you a quick run through of the financial statements, if you could hold any questions till the end. And that should cover off most of the items that are in my report. So Devlin, actually, if you can go back to page 67. Yeah, right there. So the independent auditor's report, so as Matt Beddick spoke to earlier, this is a clean audit report, which means there were no material issues found. So now if we can go to page 70. Yeah. So this is the statement of financial position. And one thing to note about it is at a fixed point in time, and that's the township's year end, which was December 31st, 2024. The statement of financial position is broken into three main categories: financial assets, which is what the township owned; financial liabilities, what the township owed; and non-financial assets, which are assets that are held for provision of future services at December 31st, 2024. So total financial assets were about 119 million. That's an increase of about 8.1 million from the year before. The financial liabilities were about 77.8 million. That's an increase of about 1.3 million from the year before. And the difference between the financial assets and the financial liabilities is your net financial assets, which is about 41 million. And that's an increase of about 6.8 million from the year before. And that's a good thing. The total non-financial assets were about 293 million. And the other item I'll point out here is the accumulated surplus, which is about 334 million. One thing to keep in mind with accumulated surplus, this is not funds that's available for spending. Okay, and that's because 292 million of that 333 million is for tangible capital assets. Okay, and tangible TCAs or tangible capital assets are not available to discharge existing liabilities, but they're held for the provision of future services. So next page, consolidated statement of operations. So this is just like the private sectors, the income statement. Might be more familiar with that terminology. It's broken in between revenues and expenses. Revenue, the total for 2024 is about 78 million. That's up about 16 million from the year before. I'll just point out to highlight a couple of items there that led to that increase. One of the main ones is the developer contributions of about 10.9 million. Included in there is about 8.6 million of tangible capital assets that the township assumed during the year by picking up a few subdivisions from developers. And the two main ones within there would be Strathleigh and Granwood. The other item that is quite a significant change from the year before is the gain on disposal of tangible capital assets of about 4.9 million. Main reason for that is due to sale of business park land in 2024. Expenses total about 49.5 million. And if you take your expenses subtracted from your revenue, you end up with the annual surplus of about 28.6 million. Now, do not confuse this with the operating surplus of 1.9 million that was reported to council back in April. There's a big difference. There is a reconciliation provided in attachment B that reconciles between the operating fund surplus that's reported to council back in April and the surplus that's in the consolidated audited financial statements. Next page. Consolidated statement of changes in net financial assets. This statement provides additional information related to the non-financial assets of the township, and it shows the acquisition of tangible capital assets, or TCAs, and usage of the capital assets through amortization expense. So I'll point out a couple of big numbers on there. Basically, the township acquired about $33.5 million of TCAs last year, and amortization or depreciation on those assets totaled almost 11 million. Next page. Consolidated statement of cash flows. This statement just reports the uses and sources of cash for the year. So it essentially reconciles from the annual surplus of 28.6 million to the cash position at the end of the year that's reported on the statement of financial position, totaling about 51.2 million. And it breaks the items down by operating activities, financing activities, capital activities, and investing activities. So happy to report the cash position actually increased for the township during the year by about 710,000. And the rest of the report basically is the notes to the consolidated financial statements. And all the notes do, they just provide details of the accounting policies used to derive the financial statements. And they provide additional disclosures on certain items in the financial statements. As I went through, you might have seen references to notes. Those are in the remainder of the report here. That's a quick run through. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mark. Comments, questions? Councillor Evoy.
Thank you, through you, sir. Thank you. Looking over at Ms. Bettel reminds me, I had looked for a line that represents sponsorships / in-kind, because I know we've done a really great job of that this year. And I don't see the line, and I'm wondering where we might see that represented for, obviously, additional income than what we've had in the past before that role was taken on.
So you're talking about sponsorships that we...
Sponsorships and income, yeah.
So the sponsorships that we have received would be on page, I'll just give you the page number of the financial, it's page 6 or 71 in the agenda package.
Should that be part of the 710?
Well, yeah, you're looking at the cash. No, it'd be back in the statement of operations. And the revenue received for that would be, I believe, actually, it's because it's not a huge amount in comparison to the rest of the statements. It's in that interest, donations, and other line of about 3.6 million. I think, yeah, right.
I just thank you. Just to follow up, I do want to say that it is substantial enough, because I know it really helps to support that role and the work that is, and hopefully that will be an inspiration to future sponsors to see the difference that it makes in our overall budget. So thanks for pointing it out.
Any further comments or questions from council? No, I don't see anything from Dennis. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for staff's involvement, and thanks again for Matthew's involvement as well.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move now to item. Oh, sorry. Yes, you're right. We do. A recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington approves the December 31st, 2024 audited draft consolidated financial statements as presented by KPMG LLP Chartered Professional Accountants. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Jefferson, seconder on that. Councillor McDonald. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you very much for that. Now we'll move back up to item 8.1, use of Indigenous themed names, logos, and imagery within or on township facilities and properties updates, and a report from Kirsten. Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. That was a mouthful. Yeah. Okay. It's just delayed.
Okay, so to recap this journey that we have been on, in July of 2024, through report CS 2024-22, Council directed staff to reinstall the banners at the Jefferson Elora Community Centre Arena, exclusive of the banners displaying Indigenous themed logos or names, until such time as Council implemented a policy on Indigenous themed sports logos in township facilities. And that Council directed staff to continue the work with the Indigenous themed sports logos in township facilities working group under the DEI advisory committee to develop that policy and to progress on the initiative to be shared with the community on the Connect CW website. The banners were originally removed to complete the JECC renovations. The DEI Advisory Committee formed a working group, and the project has been hosted on Connect CW. And this spring, the Elora Mohawks Junior B team rebranded to the Elora Hawks, independent to the township, and the River Hawks, previously rebranded. So today, the focus is on sharing the draft policy for use of Indigenous themed names, logos, and imagery within or on township facilities and properties. We will also outline the reconciliation-focused policy pathway to respectful Indigenous representation. We have Kevin Sandy, who has joined us this evening, and he will also speak about his perception of the process, the impact of the images on Indigenous youth, and a few other things. And then lastly, we will review the engagement and consultation plan and request approval for the allocation of $20,000 from the DEI Capital Fund to implement that plan. After the presentation, Kevin and I will address any questions. Staff intentionally named the process the reconciliation-focused policy pathway to respectful Indigenous representation to reflect both Council's values and the approach being taken to address the concerns laid out in the original letter from the Ontario Human Rights Commission. It is reconciliation-focused, affirming the township's commitment to truth and reconciliation. It is a policy pathway signaling that this is not a one-time action. It's a phased, intentional process with clear direction. And finally, respectful Indigenous representation highlights the purpose to ensure that any imagery or representation of Indigenous cultures in our facilities and on properties is accurate, appropriate, and informed by Indigenous voices. The work has been structured into 5 distinct phases to ensure that it's not rushed and that it reflects a process of truth, learning, and partnership. This phased structure supports not just a policy change, but a deeper, more lasting change in how we operate and engage. Phase 1 is all about clarity. To move forward, it's important to make sure that the township, community partners, and the public all understand what this work is about and why it matters. That means being transparent about the goals to support reconciliation and ensure respectful Indigenous representation. It's being transparent about the harms associated with Indigenous themed imagery when not used appropriately, and the transparency around the process as a commitment to this 5-phased approach. Setting the context gives everyone a shared starting point. It helps build trust, reduce confusion, and ensure that future phases are grounded in clear and respectful communication. Phase 2 is focused on building public understanding as a critical step towards respectful Indigenous representation. Public learning event presentations by Indigenous speakers will highlight the culture and emotional impact of Indigenous themed imagery and address historical context, the difference between cultural appreciation and appropriation, and the importance of reconciliation at the local level. These learning opportunities will lay important groundwork for informed community dialogue. Phase 3 shows that this is not a linear pathway, but the policy works parallel with other phases that are happening. This step will formalize the direction of the work while keeping it collaborative and responsive.
Phase 4 is a celebratory public event recognizing the dedication and time invested by the groups that have contributed to this work. It will be about sharing stories and traditions, and the goal will be to continue to steward relationships with the contributors and strengthen the community bonds and pride. The final phase is the reconciliation-focused policy as the final phase in the reconciliation-focused policy pathway to Indigenous representation. It's important to emphasize that reconciliation is not a one-time event. This stage highlights that it's an ongoing journey. Phase 5 focuses on continuous education and integration, which is a shared outcome for both the Fergus Grand Theatre operations and community impact implementation plan and the cultural action plan, both approved by council earlier this year. This involves committing to regular educational opportunities to deepen the understanding and respect for Indigenous peoples and their history. The draft policy is attached in your package this evening for council's review and consideration. Staff will return in August with a final draft, providing an opportunity for community consultation and feedback. The policy covers the use of new and existing Indigenous-themed imagery. It provides guiding principles of reconciliation, respect, inclusion, and education. The policy provides direction on how existing imagery will be handled and prohibits new Indigenous-themed names or logos by non-Indigenous organizations. There are clear enforcement and implementation steps in the policy. The recommendation to consider permitting the existing banners to be reinstalled in the Jefferson Elora Community Centre was a collaborative decision with the Centre Wellington partners and Indigenous partners. The imagery must be accompanied with context. The story needs to be shared about the team's evolution, acknowledge the harm caused by appropriated imagery, and explain how this process fits into the broader reconciliation work. The goal is to ensure that if Indigenous-themed imagery appears in the township spaces, it does so responsibly, respectfully, and with meaning. To ensure the approach was moving forward in a respectful and informed way, staff consulted with a range of voices, Indigenous leaders, a human rights advisor, advisory committees, and local lacrosse representatives. Their insights shaped both the tone and the direction of the policy. What we heard reinforced the importance of transparency, ongoing education, and ensuring that any representation of Indigenous culture in township spaces is done with integrity and guidance. You'll find a full summary of the feedback in the attachment named Consultation Summary to date. To support the implementation of the reconciliation-focused policy pathway to respectful Indigenous representation, staff are recommending a one-time allocation of $20,000 from the township's DEI Capital Fund, which currently has a balance of just over $102,000. The funding will cover consultation costs to support policy development and community engagement, education events to build awareness and foster learning, and promotional work to support transparency and communication with the public. This also includes funds for the Jefferson Elora Community Centre permanent contextual display. This investment ensures the township has the tools and supports in place to implement the policy meaningfully and respectfully. And now I want to introduce you to Kevin Sandy. Kevin's one of the Indigenous leaders the working group has been engaging with. Kevin is from the Cayuga Nation, Wolf Clan, Six Nations of the Grand River. He's visionary CEO of Haudenosaunee Lacrosse. Kevin is going to share with us today a few of his thoughts on the process and the impacts of Indigenous youth. And we're thrilled that you could join us in person. So I'll pass it over to Kevin.
Welcome, Kevin.
Yeah. Customary for myself to introduce myself for the overview. Scanos Wakwego, Nagaunia, Anekayaso, Otahioni, Niwaganshante. And I also come from the what we call the Gayokono Nation. And my name in my language means little sky. It's I come from the one who lead the path, or the Wolf Clan. That's my family. And I come from the people of the Great Pipe, or the people of the Great Swamp, also known as the Cayuga Nation, and we'll say in the English context. And I'm happy to be here today to give you some, I guess, thoughts, insight, and perspectives in terms of, I guess, the journey that I've been on over the years. And that journey obviously has been fueled by a number of different areas. I do a lot of work in, we'll say, education and awareness and creating understanding in schools and colleges and universities through our program that we operate. I also operate my own business management firm. And we do a lot of governance and strategic planning type of work, not only within our own sector, but also the non-Indigenous sector as well. And really here to share and share some insights in terms of the journey and I guess what you're embarking on right now. I'm really, I guess, pleased to see that you're actually, I always believe there's an area of law called consultation and accommodation. And that part of that process is a duty to consult. And so the themes that you're embarking upon right now is important for as far as consultation goes, and engagement processes is really important. But I appreciate, again, the opportunity just to be here tonight to share some and acknowledge some of the work that you're doing as well. And it's having some of these harder, challenging discussions is not easy when it comes to talking about imagery and logos and representation and how it's shared. And I'm just here to share what I call the Gawaninos, which is some beautiful words with you, and really to making sure that individuals are moving on a good path. And for me, I call it the river of life, because when we look at our Gaswenta, our Turo, we travel on this river of life within our canoe. The non-Indigenous travel on there within their vessel, and that relationship has to be all about what I say in my language is Gagoyoste, all about respect. It should be about peace. It should be about friendship. And the way we see it, that agreement should be everlasting. So, and that's something I said, we've always held true to that as Haudenosaunee people, Some people call us Haudenosaunee, but it's Haudenosaunee. And that's the whole aspect of making sure that we're just doing things in a good way. We're doing it in the right way. And we all know the story of the Elora team as a youth growing up here, not growing up, but playing Elora and Fergus. And I was always confused, I guess, by the imagery of the team here, because the caricature did not represent, we'll say, how we say it, and how we say it is how I say it in my language is Ganyange Hono, and how we'll say the true Ganyange Haga people say it is people of the Flint. So it really did not represent, because the caricature that was utilized was Plains Cree. And so it harkens me back to, how can a team and the community say we're honoring and respecting when it's not even from the same area and same territory? So I look at that, and also, and looking at Center Wellington when they rebranded as well, they had, and this is how, I'm not sure if council understands how you differentiate a Haudenosaunee, say from Ganyange Haga to Honodawaga to Gayokono, and does anyone know? No, it's with the feathers. Okay, 3 feathers are Mohawk. Ganyange Haga, not even Mohawk. That's English. So Ganyange Haga is like this. So I wanted to share that with you because it's important. It's important for you to understand that, because that's contextually how people see it. I know there's a podcast that was done in our community called The Creators Game, and it talked about the raising or the potential re-raising of the banners. So look for it. Actually, you'll get some insight as well in terms of how our people see it. And that's just not me. Like I say, when I say our people, I mean, people are kind of looking and say, okay, what are they going to do? And that's part of that podcast called The Creators Game. So I encourage you to watch it. And so that's part of I think the process as well, because when we're looking at the imaging, we're looking at who are we paying honor and respect to? And I think I look at the NFL. I'm a big football fan. I'm a sports fan. Okay, so Kansas City Chiefs, right? Yeah. What are they doing? No one challenges them. Yeah. However, I look at this right in front of me, and okay, this is our team called the Six Nations Chiefs, all inspired obviously by our community. You'll see the feathers on, local Indigenous artists. And that's the whole aspect, even what they're talking about as part of your process now. Everything, the imagery must be done, not should be done, must be done by Indigenous artists and collectives of artists. And so this is, again, the brand of our team, our Man Cup champion team for 2 years running, hopefully 3. Yeah, this coming September, but we'll see. But I think that's the whole aspect of really is honoring that and really understanding, I guess, the audience and the beautiful people that you're working with. I think it's really important to do that. And just me sharing, I guess, that asking you that question and nobody knew, right? And so that's part of the education plus awareness equals better understanding, which helps enhance relationships, which helps lift us up together in this journey, in this river of life that we're on. And I think it's really important to making sure that we're continuing to do that in a good, healthy manner, and we're doing it in a good way, because the Kanien'kehá:ka people are people of the Flint. That's who they are. That's who we are. And we have to honor that. Yeah, it's not Mohawks. It's Kanien'kehá:ka. Yeah, and that's the understanding that people have to have. Yeah, in this day and age, and June 30th, 2025. Yeah, it must work that way. And even the whole aspect of the word, that English word, is derived from something that's not even pleasant, really. It's derived from an Algonquin word. Yeah, and if you do your research, you do your history, it's something that it's not even a word to be proud of, really. Like, in terms of how it was referred to, currently, well, I know it was called man-eaters. Are they eating something living? So, like you say, that's part of the education that we have to do together. And I think that's important for us to do that. And that's also about respecting one another and who we are in this journey, and making sure that the images that we're putting out there have a better understanding and appreciation. Like, I do work at the Commonwealth Games. I've been in part of the Pan Am Games as well. Culture education and understanding, to me, makes better awareness, and it creates better relations and enhances communications. However, the whole aspect too is around that the duty to consult is that you have to get permission as well. If you're going to utilize people's names, ask them. Okay, and that's part of that engagement process, is because that process has to. We're just one of few people. My nation includes, just as Grand River, 30,000 people. Okay, and in there is very astute, knowledgeable individuals, just like I am, who have that probably even history that goes even back further than I would at my age. Like my dad, I look at my dad, he's 84, 85, going on 85. And just the knowledge base that he has is just amazing. So that's what I'm trying to, that's what I'm suggesting to you and recommending to you, like I said, to make sure that the steps that you take always will ask for permission as well for it to be utilized in your reports, in that understanding, because that also, when I looked at the report that Kristen provided, I was kind of caught off guard a little bit, Kristen, just because my name was in there. Yeah, and because we had one talk. Is that consultation? Is that engagement? We had one talk. Actually, two, before we did some prep before this, I could say so. So again, keep doing your best job, again, to understanding who we are. Just the whole aspect of respect and that peace and that friendship helps build good intent. And the intent is there. I see it as a positive. I see something that can be definitely enhanced and improved upon going forward, and just keep moving forward in a good way. Keep educating yourselves. I hope tonight I shared something with you that you did not know. Yeah, I'm sure I did. And again, keep educating, keep asking questions, move forward in a good way, and just now for your time and your energy. I appreciate that. And I can answer any questions. Anyone has any questions.
Hey, Kevin, comments, questions for Kevin? Yes, go ahead.
Is it appropriate for me to say Miigwech at this time?
Sure. Yeah.
Make
My
what?
kids are trained, so yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I appreciate it. I'm afraid that's the only language I know it in, so
Yeah.
I didn't want to be disrespectful. I think we learned a lot from this. First of all, I've always said Haudenosaunee. I was literally taught to say Haudenosaunee, so I will switch it to Haudenosaunee moving forward because I'm hearing your lesson. So thank you for that. I actually have a question for Kristen, if I may. So when I look at the continuous development, I'm wondering if and how we're collaborating with our local school boards, specifically with steps 2, 4, and 5, with regards to educating our youth and recognizing that they are the voice of tomorrow. And if we want to our guests' point, education and awareness is how we make positive change. So I'm wondering if and how we are collaborating with the school boards and our youth.
Through you, Mayor Waters. So at this time, we are not focusing the efforts on the school boards, but we are focusing it on community and families, and doing some educational with Kevin is part of the plan. We have been working with the school board on the Theatre for Young Audiences program, and we can see some challenges in how they have a small group of people that they are able to work with. And we have specific themes that we're trying to keep true to. So rather than changing the presenters to the presenters on their preferred list, we're trying to get that story out in its truest form. So we will continue to work with them. But we're focusing on community and families. No problem.
Any further comments? Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, and thank you, Kevin and Kristen, for the presentation. And I did learn a lot. Thank you, Kevin, for coming to this evening. I'm just curious, Kristen, I know the budget, you say $20,000, but then I see quite a few activities in the phases, including this education, and we just mentioned Kevin might be part of that. Maybe some other people coming to do presentations, and also the visual display that will go up in the Jefferson Elora Arena. Those can get expensive. So I'm actually curious if 20,000 is actually enough money, and if we can have maybe a honest discussion about that. Because if there is just over 100,000 in that particular fund, that maybe we don't want to skimp out on this. So if you're being too conservative in the budget, could you just maybe let us know and we can have that discussion? Thank you.
Okay. Any further? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. Thank you, Kevin, for coming, and thank you for teaching us. It was very nice to hear. Thank you, and thank you for taking the time. Kristen, with regards to, you mentioned some of the old banners will be going back up. Can you elaborate just a little bit more on that?
Through you, Mayor. So it is a process, and there's some pieces that need to happen for those banners to go up. And that's the 5-phased approach to having the policy passed, to having engagement around that policy, to having a contextual permanent display erected. So that's all of the things that need to happen before those banners go up.
Perfect. Thank you for explaining it.
Councillor Wilton.
If I'm sure there might be more questions and comments, but I will just put a suggestion out there to a friendly amendment that we allocate 40,000 from the DEI capital project. And if they don't need the 40,000, that's fine. If they just spend the 20, that's great. The other 20 can go back in the pool, but I would like to give them just a little more wiggle room to make sure everybody's time and cost and everything like that is covered adequately and appropriately. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor, sorry, are you...
Question to Councillor Wilton's comment.
Yep.
Looking actually to Kristen respectfully, what's the current budget in total to raise it from 40 to 40 from 20 of what?
So the 20,000 through you, Mayor Waters, the 20,000 that we have requested is what we can implement in 2025. And if the plan was to come back and see with that and the other pieces that we're working on from the DEI assistant this summer, there will be another ask that comes for what we can do in 2026.
Sorry, just to clarify, so looking at each group, let's talk about DEI for this minute. Is there not an allocated number of say amount, or do you just keep coming back and asking every time you need it?
For you, Mayor Waters, yes. So that reserve fund that is there, we have to come to council to say if we are spending anything. So, and it's more of a, this is what the project looks like. These are the initiatives that we would hope to cover, and this is how much money we need.
Councillor McDonald.
Through Mayor Waters, I prefer to have the funds validated as needed, and you might discover some other things with the student that you might need later. So I would prefer to hear that later because the price of products are changing, it seems, weekly right now. So I would prefer that. So thanks for explaining it.
Councillor Jefferson, or sorry, Pat.
Thank you. So the budget that we have set at the $20,000, it's going to be for the specific things that we have mentioned to get us started on this path to the end of 2025. Where we may run into a challenge is in the physical display. We've set some money aside, but we haven't investigated that. When we come back in August 25th for what we will hope to be the approval of the policy, we are also intending to bring a concept or a draft of what that permanent display is. So at that time, we can ask for more funding. And each time we come back under the DEI committee's purview and this fund, it will be for a specific use, and the student is helping us with, for example, the flag policy, another flagpole in Fergus, so that will also spend some of the funds. But once we also pull together everything we want to do in 2026, it can be a conversation at the council budget discussion about how much we allocate out of that for what items. So this year we're very much working towards finding what funds where, what will it cost, and then we can bring more reports at budget time. So the 20,000 I think is where we want to start with an allocated amount. Very generous to think of giving more, but we will come back and ask for more if we find that we're needing it. But for the events, for the marketing of it, we already have some of those costs in play, so we're able to put that number on it. Hope that gives some context to the budget.
Okay. So are we, sorry, Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. Mine was just in regards to the contextual display. So we don't know exactly what it's going to look like until later. We're just working through that right now.
Yep. Through you, Mayor Waters. So we have had a couple of meetings of what options we have with the space that makes most sense in the JECC, just in proximity to the banners. We've talked about how much space we have, how we can utilize that space, images, and the text, and we're still, like Pat said, looking into what would the cost be, and that would come back in August.
Okay, any further comments or questions? Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Welton.
I'd be fine with removing my amendment, but I just want to make sure the staff are aware that if things are getting more expensive and that we want to have that conversation. And I also want to make sure that anybody involved from Indigenous communities are appropriately compensated for their time and efforts and insights and knowledge. So I just want to make sure we're being respectful in that regard as well. So, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that. I think what it is a starting point, and we need to all start on the same page. So I think it's a good start, and for us to move forward. Again, if there's no further comments or questions for Kirsten or Kevin, really appreciate your presentation today, and the fact that you're leaving the important part is your part of your knowledge and with us, so we can digest that and become better at who we need to become. So, really appreciate that.
FYI, Elora Station played the final. Yeah, you heard that.
Okay. I'm going to read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington receive the draft use of Indigenous theme logos and imagery within or on township facilities and properties policies for information, and direct staff to return to Council with a final draft policy for future Council meeting, and that the Council direct staff to execute a communication plan to share the draft policy for feedback, and that Council direct staff to collaborate with the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion DEI working group, Indigenous partners and local lacrosse organizations to finalize the permanent contextual displays for the Jefferson Elora Community Center, and return to Council at the same time as the final policy for consideration of approval, and that the Council directs staff to execute the reconciliation focus policy pathway to respectful Indigenous representation outline and report CS 2025-15, and that Council will allocate $20,000 from the DEI capital project to execute the reconciliation focus policy pathway to respectful Indigenous representation. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder to that. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Councillor Craddock, second on that. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're 8.2. Laura Green Space Sculpture Edition, and you're back.
All right, so I think Marty covered a lot of things, so this is formality purposes only. But in 2017, Council approved the installation of a pond with which the Stephanie Minerovich Fund contributed $6,000 to that project. The pond has had persistent issues with stagnant water and has not functioned as it was intended. The township staff have removed the pond just this past month as part of broader improvements to the green space, and the green space just reopened on Friday of last week. The fund managers, Marty, who you heard from tonight, and Risa Lent are disappointed by the removal, but they support finding an alternative use of the space and the funds. The fund managers proposed a low to no maintenance alternative, a permanent installation of a sculpture that was previously featured temporarily through the Elora Sculpture Project. The proposed sculpture has received full staff support. The sculpture was positively received during its seasonal display in the green space. There is a financial request to Township Council for a $6,000 investment towards the project, matching the amount initially used by the Minerovich Fund. Remaining costs, which could include artist fees, materials, installation, plaque, etc., would be covered by the remaining Stephanie Minerovich Green Space Fund. So this is the proposed installation, Meet Mo the Moose Fawn, a 5-foot tall sculpture by artist Frank Ripley. The material is repurposed metal and found objects, and the timing for this could be this summer. The base for it, as was mentioned, has been provided by the Elora Sculpture Project, and that makes it much more easy and quick to install. This is a screen capture of the Elora green space, and the colored dots in the space are the locations of the current Elora Sculpture Project bases. The red one is the location that's being considered by the committee. This is also in the same area as the previous pond. Any questions?
Thank you. Councillor Evoy.
Thank you. Through you, 2 questions. First of all, unfortunately, we've seen a lot of the Elora art that has been put on those stands picked up and damaged terribly. I looked to some of them that Happy Dance, I believe it was, that landed in the water. So are we making sure that this is, first of all, heavy enough that can't be done to it?
Through you, Mayor. Yes, this is the idea is that the base is grounded and they're in the ground. So they're pretty solid to be able to withstand.
There's the hug. Thank you. And the second question is around the money. So do you have clarification, or can you confirm whose idea it was to put that pond in the first place? Because I hate to use the same dollars twice, which could explain why Marty and the team are upset about us replacing it and then charging them to redo it. So I would absolutely, first of all, stand behind the $6,000. But I wonder was this something that I look to Marty with respect, if I'm allowed, did you, who were in charge of the fund, initially say we're putting in this pond and go ahead without us knowing? Or I'm worried about this second issue of the same thing.
A lot of consultation. Kurt McElwain was the
Sorry, Marty, could you come up?
Thank you for allowing that. I realize it's not standard, but I just want to make sure that we're clear when we reinvest.
At the time, no, we didn't do anything without the town. So it was all through consultation. Kirk McElwain was the council at the time. And then I came to council and presented the idea. And then the council at the time voted in favor of the pond. And it was the site that was chosen by the Parks Department. So no, all we did was fund the money and then pick the contractor to come in and do it and then pay the bill.
Thank you. Through you. Then I personally am fine. I'll move forward to vote yes, because we couldn't have known this was going to happen. And thank you for sharing in the costs. Thank the Minervich watchers to share in the costs, because I don't think it would be fair then for either group to take it all on.
Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. Again, thank you for your time, Marty. Nothing lasts forever. So I'm sure it was beautiful at the time. I think I did see it in early days. And thank you. My next question is for Kristen. Kristen, this view, the aerial view, is this an old picture? Mm-hmm. It's not up to date. Okay. And so the moose is going where the red dot is?
The red dot. Yes.
Okay. Well, he's kind of nice and hidden in there. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation. I'll read the recommendation that the Council of Township of Centre Wellington approve the installation of new sculpture, Mo the Moose Fawn, in the Laura Green space, and a plaque recognizing the sculpture in memory of Stephanie Minervich, and that Council authorize a $6,000 contribution in support of this project funded from the General Capital Reserve, and that Council delegate authority to the Managing Director of Community Services to execute the required agreements to facilitate the project. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wilton, seconder on that. Councillor McDonald. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Thank you. Now we'll move down to 8.4. Yes, water and wastewater servicing master plan, notice of study completion. And we have Ryan approaching the lectern. Welcome, Ryan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At the May 26th meeting, Township staff along with RVA presented for information the water and wastewater servicing master plan preferred alternative. The report before you is to seek council endorsement and to publish the notice of study completion. Once the notice of completion has been published, a 45-day review period will begin. This review period would be from July 3rd to August 17th, 2025. Also, following the May 26th meeting and posting of the master plan preferred alternative, Township staff have met with multiple interested parties. During these meetings, staff have reiterated that the intention of the master plan is to be a high-level servicing strategy for development areas, and that individual developments, parcels, or phasing of servicing was not included in the project scope. The master plan will also be utilized as a guidance document during future planning processes. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions regarding this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Yes, Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. Thank you, Ryan. Are you able to shed some light on our delegation that spoke earlier about that? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Yeah, thanks, Councillor McDonald. And so through Mayor Waters, yeah, so, I want to reiterate what Ryan said in that this is a high level plan. We're looking at servicing, how do we service the entire urban boundary expansion area? And when we get into these more property specific discussions, that really wasn't the intent of the master plan. And the master plan also doesn't get into how the development is going to be phased in the township. So we know we wanted to identify what infrastructure is needed to service this future development, and then look at options, different options for servicing, and what would be the preferred option for servicing. So that's what the master plan has done. It's established these high level servicing strategies for these large development areas. It doesn't get into the property specific types of considerations that the delegation was speaking to.
Okay, any other further comments or questions for Ryan? Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Mayor Waters. So then just for some more clarification there then. So if somebody's looking at doing a development and submitting an application and proceeding, then the township is willing to work and figure out different adjustments that could be made for each individual development as it comes to the table. Just for clarification on that.
I will do my best to answer. County OPA 126 was adopted by County Council, and it goes to the Minister of Municipal Affairs for approval when it has not yet been approved. But we have received a number of inquiries from developers that want to get started immediately. So we're a little bit, that wasn't our intention. We made it very clear in our presentations to council that the township would establish the priorities. There are specific policies in County OPA 126 that direct the municipality to prepare a staging plan for development, identify areas that require secondary plans, as an example. But it doesn't prohibit an applicant from making an application. So certainly, we can't refuse to accept an application that meets the requirements of the Planning Act. But we are firm our intent that the township is going to determine the sequencing of development and will allocate sewer and water capacity to development based on those decisions. And so I think, we will entertain applications. They'll be required to go through pre-consultation and will identify their overall requirements for studies like a functional servicing report. And we'll review those with engineering staff. But certainly we want to be in the driver's seat as far as the timing of development.
Any further comments or questions? Councillor Jefferson.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Waters. So then for further clarification, when I'm reading the master plan, master project list that was in our report, and we're looking at the timing and our start dates, and they all appear to be like 2030 would be the first one, I believe. And we're sitting at 2025, but then we have people that are willing to look at developments and start looking at doing applications to come to the township. Then are we not looking at things until 2030 for water, wastewater? Like, I'm just trying to get clarification, because we have the province saying like, you must develop. And we're like, yes, okay, we're getting on track with that. But then we're also looking at, we're ready to develop and we want to move forward. But then we are not looking at water, wastewater until 2030. Just need some clarification on that.
Sure. So through you, Mayor Waters. So a couple of the projects do have like an average growth driver, such as like the wastewater treatment plant or the reservoir, for example. We have an idea of how quickly we may grow or run out of capacity at those facilities. Some of the other projects were a little harder to pin down because we couldn't really say like what year or where some development was going to happen. So some project drivers were left a little more vague. We know what projects are required for which areas, but as to say like, you know, one of the areas requires a project by 2035, we couldn't really assume based off of development coming in. So the projects that are in that table there are required to facilitate the development, but the timing could shift based off of when applications come in.
Yeah, go ahead, Brett.
I just want to add to that in terms of need. You know, we know that the province has told us that we need so many millions of homes in Ontario over the next 10 years. But we do have a fairly significant inventory of draft approved and ready to build on lots in the community now that are not being built on. We're only just servicing the second phase. So they haven't even started on phase 2. There's a big chunk of the Youngblood development in Elora. I'm thinking of Elora primarily because that's where this delegation tonight. And we have Cache that just got approved by the Ontario Land Tribunal that hasn't even started yet. So when the timing of projects in the master plan says not until 2030, that's partly because we have a pretty significant inventory of existing approved developments that have capital projects that haven't even started yet. And of course, we have the entirety of South Fergus that is, you know, we're just in the preliminary discussion. So Sorbera just serviced phase 3A. They have remaining lots in phase 2 that haven't been built on yet. And phase 3A is all the roads are everything in, but they have not yet pulled any building permits. So we do have a substantial inventory of lots. We appreciate that developers are anxious to move ahead with the lands that have been added. But again, we are, you know, it's in our view, the lands that we added to the urban boundary are for long-term planning to take us to 2051. We have plenty of land available in the shorter term that's ready for development now with the services already in the ground. So it's important that we take the time to prepare the proper staging plan.
Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters, to Brett, have the lots up in Salem, Reeds, have those all finished yet?
Off the top of my head, I think there may be a handful that haven't been built on yet, but that's all.
For follow-up, just comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, just with, you know, expansion and water. I'd just like to see us finish what is empty first, too. So I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, thank you for your presentation, Ryan. I'll read the recommendation. The Council of Township of Centre Wellington endorses the Water and Wastewater Service Master Plan and directs staff to publish a notice of study completion for the study as outlined in Report IS 2025-21, and that Council directs staff to bring forward program studies and projects included in the Water and Wastewater Servicing Master Plan for consideration in capital and operating budget deliberations. To have a mover for that, Councillor McDonald, a seconder on that. Councillor Wilton, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. So now we're going to go to item 12. Confirmatory bylaw. Bylaw to confirm the actions of council. Recommendation that bylaw 2025-44 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held June 30th, 2025 be introduced a first, second, and third time and passed in open council. Do you have a mover for that? Councillor Craddock, a seconder on that. Councillor Wilton, any further comments or questions? Yes. There isn't one. No. Okay. First and second, all those in favor? So moved. Do we have a mover for adjournment? Councillor McDonald, seconder on that. Councillor Wilton, any further comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? So moved. Good night, everyone.